Now let me say a word about Native American communities. I think there is no debate, sadly no debate, that from day one, from the first day that settlers came to this country, the Native American people have been lied to, they have been cheated, and negotiated treaties have been broken. We owe the Native American people so much. And we are forever grateful that they have shared their culture, that they have shared their respect for the environment with us. But all of us know that the First Americans, our Native American brothers and sisters, today live in many cases on ancestral lands which they have called home for thousands of years. Others live on lands where they have been moved forcibly by federal policies throughout our history. But all too often, Native Americans have not been heard on issues that impact their communities. They have been told what to do. They have not been involved in the process. Despite the existence of negotiated treaties which coerce tribal nations into ceding, as we all know, millions of acres of their homelands to the United States in exchange for guaranteed rights, many of those rights have not been upheld. Despite past and ongoing mistreatment of Native Americans, including federally sanctioned assimilation through boarding schools, Native Americans have maintained possession of cultural and natural resources today that are the key to the Indian country's bright future. The United States government has a duty to ensure equal opportunities and justice for all of its citizens, including our First Americans. And let us be honest, again, let us be honest and acknowledge that we are not doing that today. The challenges, and I have been all over the country speaking to tribal leaders, not just here in Arizona, and this is what I have learned. Native Americans continue to face appalling levels of inequality and systematic injustice. Today in America, 1 in 4 Native Americans are living in poverty, and the high school graduation rate is 67%, the lowest of any racial demographic group. The second leading cause of death for Native Americans between 15 and 24 is suicide. And that speaks to incredible despair. Second leading cause of death for young people is suicide. 1 in 3, it's important that we lay this out because without the knowledge, we cannot go forward. 1 in 3 Native American women will be raped in her lifetime. Most of the offenders are non-Native. Most of the programs dedicated to the tribal nations are underfunded. That has led to inadequate housing, inadequate health care, inadequate education, and insufficient law enforcement. Today, Native Americans have a lower life expectancy and higher rates of uninsured than the population at large, and even those who have health coverage have difficulty accessing the health care that they need. Exacerbating the struggles of Indian country is a failure to understand and support the principles of self-determination. During my time in Congress, I have worked with other members and with the Native American communities to address the challenges facing the Native community and to create opportunities for those communities. I have recently introduced in the U.S. Senate the Save Oak Flat Act, This is the same legislation that Representative Raul Grijalva has introduced in the House. Raul, I believe, would have been here with us tonight, but the Congress is in session. And that legislation would repeal a federal lands transfer of a sacred place in Arizona given to a foreign mining corporation. The sacred places of our Native American communities cannot and must not be sacrificed for the profits of mining interests. As a senator, I have consistently opposed tar sands and fracked gas pipelines. Like the Keystone pipelines and other pipelines throughout this country. In my view, not only are these pipelines themselves causing environmental damage, not only do they stand the possibility of terrible oil spills, but ultimately, as a nation, we have got to break our dependence on fossil fuel. And move aggressively to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. And you are living here in this beautiful state. You have an unbelievable natural resource. It is called the sun. Sun doesn't have oil spills. Sun doesn't have gas leaks. Sun, especially in your state, is out almost every day. Wish I could say that about my state. But you have an opportunity here to stand up to the fossil fuel industry and transform your energy to solar, to wind, to geothermal. As a nation, we need to increase tribal sovereignty and tribal jurisdiction in prosecuting criminal acts done on tribal lands, regardless of the race of the perpetrator. Tribes need increased control over tribal housing programs, and we need a major investment in Native American housing. And by the way, City of Washington has a very good football team, but it doesn't have to be called the Redskins. We need to recommit the federal government to honor the treaties and statutes that are at the core of the trust relationship. And that means having senior-level tribal appointees with access to all executive agency leadership. Washington should never act on issues of importance to the tribes without being in consultation with them. Finally, the federal government must protect Native American cultures. Tribal communities must be empowered by providing resources to protect and revitalize indigenous languages, religions, cultures, and traditions. The culture of the Native American people is so rich, is so extraordinary, that all of us will gain by preserving and enhancing that culture. Now, when we talk about the problems facing our country, and when we talk about thinking big, we have got to ask ourselves why it is that in America we are the only country, only major country, that does not guarantee health care to all people. We're the only ones. Now, the Affordable Care Act has done some good things. I'm on the committee that helped write it, and I appreciate President Obama's efforts in pushing that legislation through. But we still have 29 million people without any health insurance. And in the Native American communities, clearly health care is inadequate in many respects. We have many people, including you, some of you, who are underinsured with large deductibles and copayments, right? What kind of deductibles do we have here? 4,000? How much? $2,500. 13,000 for a large family? 13,000. All right, what does this mean? In other words, people tell you, well, we got 90% of people insured. Yeah, that's true, but you got a $13,000 deductible. That means if you don't have any money in your pocket, you're not going to go to the doctor when you should. Is that right? And you know what? We lose thousands of people a year because they don't go to the doctor when they should. They die. Furthermore, today in America, we got a pharmaceutical industry that is ripping off the American people unbelievably. Our people, you, me, all of us are paying by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. Highest prices in the world for prescription drugs, 29 million people uninsured, more underinsured, and yet we end up spending far more per person on health care than do the people of other countries. So let me say this so there is no ambiguity. I believe that health care is a right of all people, not a privilege. And that is why I believe that this country must move toward a Medicare for all health care system. That's right. And that's why in Vermont I'm really proud that we are the first state in the country to mandate GMO labeling. Let me say a word to our Latino brothers and sisters. You heard from a young lady before who told you a story that a young girl should not have to tell you. Seeing on television her parents arrested because they were at work. Let me be as clear as I can be. I believe that it is absolutely imperative that we take 11 million people out of the shadows, out of living in fear. And I believe, as I mentioned before, that Congress must pass comprehensive immigration reform. Right now, people are being exploited ruthlessly. That has got to stop. And let me repeat, if Congress does not do its job, I will use the executive powers of the presidency to expand what President Obama has started. And furthermore, we will put an end to what Catherine's family has experienced. We will stop the deportations of people. Furthermore, when we talk about immigration and when we talk about criminal justice, I have introduced legislation to ban private prisons and private detention facilities. Corporations should not be profiting off the misery and the detention of people in this country. Also want to raise an issue that is close to home here in Arizona, and that is the outrageous and unconscionable behavior of Sheriff Joe Arpaio. Some of you may have known that just the other day, my wife Jane, and you just met Jane, went to visit families in that so-called tent city. That's right. And while she was there to kind of look at the conditions that existed, while she was there to talk to some of the families who were impacted, she was met by the sheriff who kind of ambushed her. But my wife is a tough lady, and she doesn't take ambushes easy. So what she did in that brief meeting that he forced upon her, which he probably regrets now, is she asked him about racial profiling. And he didn't have an answer. She asked him about the conditions in Tent City and the other abuses that he has perpetuated, and he didn't have an answer. And you know what? He cannot have an answer because what he is doing is un-American and uncivilized. As I said before, it is easy for bullies like Sheriff Arpaio to pick on people who have no power. If I'm elected president, the President of the United States does have the power. Watch out, Joe.